This is the soul behind the curtain, a safe space where you don't have to perform, where we explore what's real beneath the patterns, beneath the roles, beneath the masks, beneath who you've been programmed to be. I'm Lulu, and here we shed the layers and learn to accept our truth. What if the reason you don't have what you say you want isn't because you're incapable of achieving it? What if part of you is actually terrified of receiving it? What if you already have the capacity to receive, but your body doesn't feel safe enough to hold it? It isn't because you don't deserve it, but because a part of you is still afraid of what happens when you actually get it. Receiving requires something that hyper-independence doesn't like very much: surrender. Sometimes our bodies are accustomed to survival, striving, anticipating, controlling, and providing. So receiving can actually feel extremely uncomfortable, not because it's dangerous, but because it's unfamiliar. Someone says they want to be rich, but the thought of having money brings up responsibility, people asking them for money, being judged, being visible, becoming greedy, becoming different, making the wrong decision, guilt about having more than others. Before we begin, we need to prepare our nervous system to receive more. Here's something interesting for us to explore. Can my body tolerate having more? More visibility, more responsibility, more uncertainty, success, money, love, more freedom? Sometimes the problem isn't that someone doesn't want abundance. It's that abundance represents something that their nervous system has learned to associate with danger. Sometimes peace doesn't feel peaceful when your nervous system is accustomed to chaos. Someone can intellectually say, I want a peaceful life, and then unconsciously create urgency because urgency is familiar. The easiest way to understand all of this is to stop thinking of the nervous system as something complicated inside the brain and think of it as your body's safety and survival system. It is constantly asking one basic question: am I safe right now? And most importantly, it can answer that question before your conscious mind has had time to think. Your nervous system is basically your body's communication and regulation network. Your brain and body are constantly sending information back and forth. Your eyes see something, your ears hear something, your heart notices changes, your stomach feels something, your muscles sense tension. Your brain interprets all of this. Your body then adjusts breathing, heart rate, digestion. A huge part of this happens automatically. You don't have to consciously tell your heart, okay, please beat faster because I'm scared. It just happens. Two major things are particularly important here: your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Your sympathetic nervous system is your get ready system. Imagine you're walking through a forest and suddenly see a huge animal. Your brain doesn't need to hold a committee meeting. Your body immediately goes, danger, act now. Your sympathetic nervous system activates your heart rate, your breathing becomes faster, your muscles become more prepared, your pupils dilate, your attention narrows, and your blood flow is prioritized towards systems needed for action. Here, your digestion becomes less important, and your stored energy becomes more available. Why is that? Your body has temporarily decided that survival is more important than digestion. This is incredibly useful if something is actually chasing you. So you run, and the threat passes. And then your nervous system can return towards baseline. When it comes to your parasympathetic nervous system, now we get to the other major player. The parasympathetic nervous system helps the body move toward you don't need to fight for your survival right now. It supports things like slowing your heart rate, your digestion, rest recovery, energy conservation, and bodily restoration. You can think of it as the body's brake and recovery system. But there's an important thing here. This system isn't simply an off switch. Your body is constantly balancing activation and regulation. You don't want to be completely relaxed all day. You want to be able to activate when necessary and deactivate when the danger has passed. That's nervous system flexibility. The reason I mention this is because there's a fight or flight system in our bodies. Fight and flight are simply different ways that the body responds to perceived danger. When it's in fight, your nervous system says, I need to confront this. You may experience anger, aggression, irritability, increased muscle tension, the urge to argue, the urge to control, and feeling ready to defend yourself. However, when it comes to flight, your nervous system says, I need to get away immediately. You may experience anxiety, restlessness, racing thoughts, and having difficulty sitting still. There are other survival responses too. Freeze response is fascinating because sometimes people think if I'm frozen, my nervous system isn't doing anything. It's quite the opposite. Your system may be saying, I don't know what to do, or moving could make this worse. You might experience inability to speak, feeling physically stuck, dissociation, emotional numbness, staring into nothing. Think of a frightened animal that suddenly becomes completely still. That's not laziness, it is a survival strategy. And then finally, there's Fawn. Fawn is essentially a safety through appeasement strategy. Instead of I'll fight you, or I'll run away, or I'll freeze, the nervous system learns maybe I can stay safe if I keep you happy. So someone can automatically say yes when they're experiencing Fawn. They will suppress their own needs, apologize excessively, become hyper attuned to other people's moods, and avoid conflict at all costs. The underlying logic here is if you're happy with me, then I'm safe. And again, this isn't necessarily a conscious decision, it can become incredibly automatic. The internal message becomes, I can't deal with this anymore. And this is why trauma responses aren't always anxiety. Sometimes trauma looks like nothing. Your nervous system doesn't only respond to what is objectively happening, it responds to what it has learned predicts danger. Imagine you grew up in an environment when silence meant someone is angry. You might eventually experience silence itself as uncomfortable. Nothing is happening, nobody is angry, but your body goes, uh-oh, something's coming. Your conscious mind might say, everything is fine, while your body says, I'm not convinced. That isn't because you're irrational. Your nervous system is making a prediction based on previous learning. This is why peace can sometimes feel dangerous. But the nervous system doesn't necessarily work according to that simple equation. So imagine someone has spent years in chaos. Their nervous system becomes extremely familiar with conflict, tension, emotional instability, hypervigilance, and constantly monitoring other people and fixing problems. Then suddenly, everything is calm. Nobody is angry. Nobody needs anything. Nothing is going wrong. And instead of, finally, their body might say, wait, what's happening? Because calm is unfamiliar, and unfamiliarity can itself trigger vigilance. The nervous system can mistake calm for the moment before danger, or the storm before the quiet, or the calm before the storm. This is especially important If someone has experienced calm, they might have sudden explosion. Many times their brain may learn that calm means something bad is probably coming. So when things are peaceful, they start scanning. They might look for signs that something is wrong and become suspicious. They might start an argument, create problems unconsciously, and suddenly feel emotionally uncomfortable. That's not necessarily because they want chaos. Their nervous system may simply have learned that I survive by anticipating chaos. There's another layer here. Peace removes distraction. Sometimes chronic activation has a strange psychological function. When you're constantly dealing with what is happening, what do I need to fix, what is this person feeling, what's gonna happen next, you don't necessarily have to sit with yourself. But when everything becomes quiet, you may suddenly encounter grief, unmet needs, loneliness, anger, emptiness, and uncertainty. So sometimes people aren't afraid of peace itself, they're afraid of what becomes audible when everything gets quiet. The goal isn't to be calm all the time. This is another misconception. A healthy nervous system isn't peace and relaxation all day. A healthy nervous system is flexible. Here's the beautiful part. Your nervous system is flexible. It's adaptive and it learns. It can mean that if someone has learned calm is danger, they can also gradually learn that calm is safe. And not by simply telling themselves every day that I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe. Nervous system doesn't necessarily learn through logic alone. It learns through repeated experiences. I can feel an emotion without acting on it. My body can be activated and then return to calm. Over time, the nervous system gets new evidence, and eventually, peace becomes less suspicious. Sometimes the nervous system doesn't ask, is this objectively dangerous? It asks, does this feel familiar enough for me to know how to survive it? That's why healing isn't simply calming yourself down. It's teaching the body through repeated lived experiences that safety can be real, stable, boring, predictable, and nothing bad has to happen just because everything is quiet. There's a very important connection between your nervous system and manifestation. You don't manifest from what you say, you live from what you can tolerate. It's not that your vibration attracts money. Your beliefs influence your behavior, and your behavior influences your opportunities. And your nervous system influences what you're willing to tolerate, pursue, risk, and receive. A person who believes they deserve success might negotiate, ask, invest, take calculated risk, tolerate rejection, and try again. Whereas someone who believes receiving is dangerous might unconsciously shrink when opportunity appears. That's where abundance becomes psychological. People sometimes become uncomfortable when life improves. They get opportunity, and then it turns into anxiety. They get money, and then it turns into guilt. Attention turns into shame, and relationships turn into fear. Eventually, success leads to feeling like you're an imposter. Suddenly, they sabotage, withdraw, overspend, procrastinate, and create conflict. They convince themselves that they don't actually want it. Not because they're broken, but because the new reality exceeds what feels familiar. You have to ask yourself a very important question. What does your body associate with money? Is it excitement? Is it fear? Or is it guilt? Do you feel pressure? A need to hide? A need to immediately give it away? Or a fear that someone will take it? That reaction might tell you more about your relationship with money than your bank account ever could. We grew up with the belief that having less makes you better. That led to scarcity mentality. We all developed a relationship with scarcity ever since we were little. Some people learned that money is safety. Others learned that money is conflict or power or shame or something that people fight over or something that disappears. Then we grow up and wonder why receiving money feels psychologically complicated. I can feel activated and remain present enough to receive. Because guess what? Receiving is a skill. Receiving compliments, receiving help, receiving love and money, receiving opportunities, receiving rest and recognition. Someone who can't receive a compliment without, oh, it's nothing, may also struggle to receive abundance without, I don't deserve this. Receiving requires you to stop negotiating against your own worth. You don't always have to earn everything before you're allowed to have it. I personally had to learn how to receive. I've been hyper-independent for most of my adult life. After my father passed away, I started working at 18 while I was in university because I had to support myself. So I became very good at not needing anyone. Someone could offer me something and my immediate answer was no. Even something as small as someone offering to buy me water, I'd say no. And here's another part of receiving that I've had to completely rethink. I've always been offered things, especially as a woman. I've been offered gifts, I've had people want to pay for things, I've had people give me things for free simply because they thought I was beautiful. And even then, I couldn't receive it. I would reject it. I would immediately feel like I had to give something back or prove that I deserved it or refuse it altogether. But now that I'm learning how to receive, something has changed in the way I experience those moments. It doesn't feel like I'm being offered something only because I'm a beautiful woman anymore. It feels like there's something I'm carrying within me, something in my presence, in my energy, something that people can feel. Maybe the physical beauty was always just one small part of the equation. Maybe what I'm learning to receive now isn't simply what someone is putting in my hands. It's the reflection of what I'm finally allowing myself to believe I am worthy of receiving. Maybe that's what abundance really requires. Not just learning how to ask for more, not just learning how to make more, but teaching your nervous system that more is safe, that being supported is safe, that having boundaries is safe. When I got married, especially during the first year, I realized how deeply ingrained this was in me. When it came to finances, I always felt like I needed to step in, I needed to contribute. I needed to make sure that I wasn't depending on anyone. And I didn't realize at the time that I wasn't just being independent. I was having trouble receiving. So I decided to challenge myself. Whenever someone offered me something, I started saying yes. Someone wanted to pay? Yes. Someone wanted to give me something? Yes. Someone wanted to help me? Yes. And I hated it at first. There's another layer to this. Because I'm Arab, we don't exactly make receiving easy. We fight over the bill. Someone offers you something and you say no 3 times before accepting it. Someone pays for you and you're already planning how you're going to repay them. There is something beautiful in our culture. Generosity is deeply embedded in us. But I had to learn that accepting generosity doesn't make me weak. Slowly, something changed. I started noticing that when I allowed myself to receive, I didn't become dependent. I became more comfortable with being supported. My standards changed. I stopped approaching life from this constant position of, what can I do for everyone? And started asking, what am I actually available to receive? And this is where I started noticing something I can only describe as feeling magnetic. Opportunities appeared. People started offering things, free things, invitations. And I started wondering whether the universe had suddenly changed or whether I had finally stopped rejecting what was already trying to reach me. And I want to make something very clear. I didn't cure myself of hyper-independence. That version of me still shows up. Sometimes I still catch myself stepping in before anyone has ever asked me to. Sometimes I still feel responsible for everyone's comfort. Sometimes I still want to solve everyone's problems, but now I can catch her. I can be independent and allow myself to be supported. I can be capable and receive. I can take care of myself and let someone else take care of me. And this has probably been one of the hardest lessons for me as an older sister. When you've grown up feeling like a little bit of a parent, especially with the circumstances that I have been through, you start believing that everyone else's life is somehow your responsibility, especially your younger siblings. But it's not. I realized that they're allowed to make their own choices. They're allowed to disappoint you, and you don't have to intervene every single time. Sometimes letting go isn't abandoning someone. Sometimes it's respecting their autonomy. It is also very important to understand the difference between becoming available to what nourishes you while becoming unavailable to what depletes you. Here's a very important thing that happened to me. When my standards started becoming higher, my boundaries became extremely clear. Every time I learned to say yes to something that benefited me, I also had to learn to say no to something that harmed me. This wasn't just about learning how to receive. It was also about disconnecting myself from the things I already knew were not good for me, the things that drained me, the things that hurt me, the things that I had been tolerating simply because I was used to tolerating them. And I started speaking louder about what I wanted and what I didn't want. And the more I practiced it, the easier it became. But something interesting happened along the way. I started getting angry, like really angry. I would feel this anger bubbling up inside of me every time someone said something or did something that crossed a line I had previously allowed them to cross. And from the outside, I probably looked more sensitive, maybe even too sensitive. But I don't think I was necessarily becoming more sensitive. I think I was finally becoming aware. Because when you start allowing yourself to receive, you're not only opening yourself up to pleasure, you're opening up yourself to everything you've previously been too guarded to feel. You're allowing yourself to heal, and healing isn't always peaceful. Sometimes healing comes with lots of anger. Because when you finally stop suppressing yourself, you finally have enough safety to feel the pain you didn't have the capacity to feel before. All the sadness and the resentment, the grief and the anger. All the things you had to swallow because you were too busy surviving, providing, fixing, accommodating, or simply being strong. Sometimes anger is simply the part of you saying, that wasn't okay. I don't want this anymore. I deserve something different. Something else happened when I started healing. My standards changed. I stopped settling for things simply because they were normal. When my husband and I started looking for a house, I didn't just want to find a house. I wanted the house that felt right for us. When I went somewhere, I started wanting the things I actually liked instead of automatically choosing the cheapest, easiest, or most convenient option. And some people might look at that and call it conceited. But there's a difference between thinking you're better than everyone else and knowing what you want for your own life. I know my standards. I know the quality of life I want. And I don't think wanting beautiful things makes me ungrateful. I think sometimes we confuse humility with deprivation. We convince ourselves that wanting more is greedy, that wanting a beautiful home is superficial, that wanting financial freedom is materialistic, that wanting the best for yourself means you're asking for too much. I don't believe that anymore. You can be grateful for what you have and still want more. You can appreciate your current life and still build a better one. You can be humble without making yourself small. I actually started watching this happen with my husband too. Because when you're healing from scarcity, sometimes you need someone beside you who can help you see beyond it. My husband and I were both living with a scarcity mentality, but in different ways. And as I started doing this work, I started pushing him too. Not because I wanted him to become someone else or to change him, but because I wanted us to experience this life together. Sometimes healing doesn't stay individual, it starts changing the environment around you. It happened with my husband, my friends, my family, and the people that I love. I found myself doing the same exact thing with my friends, encouraging them to want more, to stop assuming that what they've always had is what all they're allowed to have, to stop making scarcity their identity. There was one experience that really stayed with me. My husband and I went to a Mercedes showroom, not because we were necessarily there to buy a Mercedes, we just wanted to look. And when you come from scarcity, even walking into somewhere like that can feel intimidating. You can walk through the door already thinking that I don't belong here, and they're going to know that I can't afford this. What am I even doing here? The funny thing is, I didn't feel that way. I remember almost deliberately stepping into a character. I'm actually very good at doing that. I immediately embodied the version of myself who could afford any Mercedes in that showroom. Not because I was pretending to be someone I wasn't, but because I wanted to experience what it felt like to belong in the room before I had proof that I belonged there. And something interesting happened. The person working there came over and greeted us almost immediately. I had my eye on one particular car. I sat inside it, I imagined myself driving it. I looked around and I let myself experience it. And the salesperson sat with us and started telling us everything about the car. He brought us coffee, he opened his laptop, and we were just sitting there talking about this car. And then he told us something completely random. He said that the insurance on this particular car had started on June 26th and would end 5 years later on June 27th. My husband and I immediately looked at each other because June 26th is his birthday and June 27th is mine. We didn't need to say anything. We just looked at each other like, okay, we see you. And whether you call that coincidence, synchronicity, divine timing, or simply your brain noticing meaning in an otherwise random event, it meant something to us. It felt like the universe was winking at us. It felt like, keep going. And from that point, I started noticing these moments everywhere. That's something I've learned about signs. They're not necessarily predictions. Sometimes they're proof, reminders. Reminders that you're moving, that you're no longer the person who walked into that showroom feeling like she didn't belong. And eventually, things really did start changing. Opportunities came. We found the house we wanted. Our circumstances changed. Our standards changed. Even our relationship with money changed. Just 2 days ago, my husband and I were sitting together in our living room and realized something. We aren't just living the life we prayed for last year. We're living a life that is beyond what we were even capable of imagining back then. Now I notice the evidence everywhere. Not because every coincidence has to be a cosmic message, but because when you change internally, you become capable of seeing possibilities that you couldn't see before. You start noticing opportunities, you start saying yes. You start asking and walking into rooms differently. You start expecting yourself to belong there. And suddenly, your life starts looking different. Your nervous system has to learn how to receive what your mind says it wants. You can say you want abundance while simultaneously rejecting help. You can say you want love while refusing to be vulnerable. You can say you want money while feeling guilty every time you receive it. You can say you want a beautiful life while believing that wanting beautiful things makes you selfish. I think one of the most important things we can do with money is to neutralize it. Money isn't God. Money isn't evil. Money isn't proof that you're worthy. And money isn't proof that you're better than someone. It isn't some magical substance reserved for a special category of people. It's just a tool. And if every interaction with money produces excitement, fear, guilt, shame, desperation, or obsession, you've given money psychological power that it does not inherently possess. You want to train yourself to be able to look at something expensive and think, I can afford it, or I simply can't afford it right now. Both statements can be emotionally neutral. That's nervous system regulation around money. If I want something and buying it isn't going to financially destroy me, why am I making myself feel guilty for having it? There's a very interesting Arab proverb that I live by. اصرف ما في الجيب يأتيك ما في الغيب, which translates to spend what is in your pocket and what is in the unseen will come to you. This is a widely known cultural saying that encourages people to spend their money freely without worrying about tomorrow, under the assumption that future sustenance will always be provided. It promotes living in the moment. It implies that if you empty your pockets today, life will naturally replenish your wealth tomorrow. While many people would interpret this negatively and say that it's used to justify reckless spending, it can be reinterpreted in a beautiful, positive light when viewed through Islamic concepts like absolute trust in Allah, generosity, and charity. Overcoming fear in Islam discourages worrying excessively about tomorrow's sustenance, as Allah has guaranteed provision for every living being. Stinginess is a disease, and Islam heavily censors extreme stinginess and the hoarding of wealth due to a lack of faith in the future. The shaitan, the devil, uses the fear of poverty to stop people from doing good, while the Quran specifically states that the shaitan threatens you with poverty and orders you to immorality, while Allah promises you forgiveness from Him and bounty. In this context, the proverb becomes a psychological tool to break the fear of giving and to encourage detachment from material possessions. In Islam, having contentment with the basics, home and food, does not mean you must stay poor or avoid seeking financial success. In fact, Islam beautifully balances gratitude for the present with the expectation of future abundance and wealth. Expecting wealth from Allah is a powerful form of worship, deeply rooted in Islamic theology. Allah says, I am as my servant expects me to be. If you strive, pray, and confidently expect Allah to open the gates of financial abundance for you, you are practicing high-level faith. There is an infinite amount of abundance and wealth for everyone. It is not specific for certain people. It is completely and explicitly based on how you think of Allah and your relationship with Allah and how you view yourself as a human being. Are you worthy of this money, or is this money reserved for specific people? Because Allah's wealth is endless, and wealth isn't just money. It's your safety, it's your home, it's your family, your friends, everything that you have that others don't. My core idea here is I'm not asking you to spend recklessly and expect that Allah will magically replace it. It's that I stop treating every dirham leaving my hands like something I might never see again. It's not what if there isn't enough. There has always been enough for me, for you, for everyone on this planet. Believe me when I say this. If you woke up today, your goal isn't complete yet. Allah has given you another day. There is still something unfolding. The story is not finished. I used to think that abundance meant having enough money that I would never have to worry again. Now, I think abundance is knowing that even when I don't know where the next thing is coming from, I am not alone in this universe. Allah is with me. I am never truly without abundance. And this is very different from believing hard enough and you become rich. What I'm saying is, my relationship with scarcity changed forever before my circumstances completely changed. I learned how to receive a coffee, then a gift, then someone's generosity, then an opportunity, then a better standard of living, then money, then love, then rest, then joy, then my own desires. I realized I wasn't just teaching myself how to receive money, I was teaching myself how to receive. I practiced struggle. I took the steps. I worked. I asked and I negotiated. I showed up and I made the effort. Now I've done my part. Allah, you decide what happens next. That is surrender after effort. I am currently living every day grateful for everything that I have. Everything that I want wants me more. Everything that I desire comes in my vision every single day. I see it daily, and it's begging me to look at it. It's not the other way around. This is just so fascinating because I've always known that I was meant for more. And I know that a lot of the things that I have gone through in my life were preparing me for this moment. For 7 days, notice every time you reject receiving. Someone compliments you, say thank you. Don't explain. Someone offers help, pause before refusing. You receive money, notice what your body does. You receive an opportunity, notice what thoughts appear. You rest, notice the guilt. Then ask, can I let something good happen without immediately trying to control it? Thank you for stepping behind the curtain with me today. If this conversation resonated with you, share it with someone who's learning to trust the process of becoming. Until next time, keep questioning your patterns, keep embracing the truth, and keep listening to the soul beneath it all.